past the hour. We're back on Truth Brigade Radio. We're happy to have Dan Willis here from the Disclosure Project as our guest. You can find out more about Dan at his website, which is disclosureproject.org, and you can also check out more about him and his group on his MySpace page, which is www.myspace.com/Disclosure Witness 6. A lot of explosive videos on that webpage. Now, what we're going to do, because we have a short segment here, we're just going to roll right into this 15 minutes worth of tape, and then after the break, we'll have a whole segment where, Dan, we're going to basically dissect this tape and break it apart and talk more about it. So, Christie, if you will, why don't you just roll tape?
Eric? Yeah, can I just
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to make a quick comment on the last time we left off. I was just saying, in touring the major cities, what they would say, I'll just make this really brief, like in San Diego, what they did was use the giggle factor, let's say, which is dancing alien dolls in San Diego. In San Francisco, they said the Disclosure Project looking into aliens to solve the world's energy problems. In Portland, Oregon, they were saying, oh, UFOs, aliens, come on, let's get with the real news. This week the bozos meet the bozos at the playoffs. You know, this is the way every single city, without exception, never covered it in a serious light. It's amazing. Anyway, I just wanted to share that.
Boilerplate.
Well, you know, I did. I was curious. Were you working in media at the time while this was going on?
Oh, no. I worked at an ABC News guy a long time ago.
Okay, because I know how, you know, I actually had a few, my 15 minutes of fame and you know, lamestream, but it was funny because it would be like going to the exact same event twice. You know, you saw it with your own eyes, but what they portrayed is obviously quite different. So anyway, I was curious to how it would be sitting on the wings and not even being able to explain yourself. So we're going to go into this testimony here. These are, I guess, 9 witnesses we're going to hear from. Is that right?
Yes. I just want to say I'm grateful to Christie and Eric, you know, for letting your broadcast radio to get this information out, because it's, you know, I was on Coast to Coast a while ago, and George said, you know, well, I can march all these witnesses on. No one's going to try to stop me. But, you know, try to do it on CNN, CBS, ABC, you know, any of the major, what everybody watches other than these, you know, conspiracy, you know, or alternative ways of getting the media out to people. It's only then that you start noticing that you can't really get every time they interview me.
Well, let's roll this. Yep. We have because we actually have a short segment here, and this is 15 minutes. We're going to hear from this, and we'll come back, talk to you about it, and then take callers.
Wonderful.
It was all done. The CIA, one of the CIA men told the people they were now sworn to secrecy that this meeting never happened and this event never happened. When I asked him why, you know, I thought it was probably just a self-bomber at the time. He said, well, this is the first time that we have recorded radar data on a UFO, and these guys are going to get all excited. They're drooling over all this data. I said, well, you got to tell the public about it. And he says, no, we don't tell the public about this. It would panic the public.
I was stationed at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana, as a missile launch officer. On an early morning of March 16th, 1967, I got a call from my security guard, primary security guard upstairs. I was downstairs 60 feet underground in a capsule monitoring and controlling 10 nuclear-tipped Minuteman missiles. I got a call that morning that they were seeing strange lights flying in the sky. I disregarded that call, told them to call me when something more significant happened. I got another call subsequent to that call, and this time it was a more intense tone in the guard's voice. It was very clearly very frightened. He said there was a bright, glowing red object hovering outside the front gate. It was oval-shaped, He had all the other guards out there with their weapons drawn. Right after that call, I woke up my commander, who was on a rest period, and told him about the phone calls. As I was telling him about the phone calls, my weapons started going down, one after the other. They went into a no-go condition, what we call a no-go condition. They were unlaunchable. We lost somewhere between 6 and 8 weapons that morning within minutes of having received that second phone call of a UFO hovering outside the front gate. After reporting it to the command post, we were informed that a very similar incident happened at Echo Flight. I was at Oscar Flight. They lost all 10 of their weapons under similar circumstances, very similar circumstances, where UFOs were sighted over the launch facilities. We also have documentation that I received through FOA request from the Air Force outlining the Echo Flight incident and including in that documentation a reference to UFOs.
And when, as an administrator, you take over an office, you take over everything and you sign for everything. I signed for well over 2,000 documents. In order to sign an inventory of those things, you have to read them. Not word for word, but basically I went through every document to make sure that it was complete. It was there, as they told me, that when I turned my charge over to the next person, those same documents were there. So I got quite a good knowledge of what was going on in those documents, and believe me, there are many, many different references to UFOs. There was also NPIC pictures that shows that it would target its objects that were casing it out. Now, I worked on the SALT 1 and SALT 2 areas for the office that I worked in. So we were taking pictures all the time for verification of nuclear disarmament. And there were some objects in those pictures that didn't belong there. The second prong to this whole thing is that a lot of people talk about conspiracies over a shadow government. I'm willing to testify before Congress that these black operations do exist.
I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. In 1965, I was loaned to the Lunar Orbiter Project at NASA on Langley Field. Dr. Colley was in charge of that project. They had problems with a piece of electronic equipment that was bottlenecking their production of photographs. I went to the facility, and when I walked into the facility, there were scientists from all over the world. I was stunned, actually, to see people at a NASA project from all over the world. It didn't make any sense to me initially. I was taken into the laboratory where the equipment was malfunctioning. I couldn't repair it in the dark. I asked to have it removed. Airman second class was in the dark room at that time. I was also an airman second class. I was interested in how the whole process functioned, how the data got from the lunar orbiter to the laboratory. I asked the young man if he described the process to me. He did. About 30 minutes into the process, he said to me, in a very distressed way, by the way, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon. And then he proceeded to put photographs down in front of me, and clearly in these photographs were structures, mushroom-shaped buildings, spherical buildings, and towers. And at that point, I was very concerned because I knew we were working in compartmentalized security. He had breached security, and I was actually frightened at that moment, and I did not question him any further. And a few moments later, someone did come into the room. I worked there for 3 more days, and I remember going home and naively thinking, I can't wait to hear about this on the evening news. And here it is, more than 30 years later, and I hope we hear about it tonight. And I will testify under oath before Congress that what I'm saying is the truth.
I was able to go into restricted areas, which this was. At the time, I was talking to one of the techs in there, and he drew my attention to a photograph, a NASA photograph. It had a dot on it, and I said, what is that? Well, he drew my attention to it, and I said, is that a dot on the emulsion? And he said, and he's smiling, and he has his hands crossed, and he said, round dots on the emulsion don't leave round shadows on the ground. And this was an aerial photograph of the Earth, and the shadows of the craft, or whatever it was, were in the same angle as the trees. And by its very nature, UFO, and I wanted to clarify that to a gentleman that was talking to me, means unidentified. So I did not know what this was. But I realized at this point that it's very secret, that it was kept secret, because I asked him, what are you going to do with this piece of information? And he said, we always airbrush these out before we sell them to the public. After that, I decided I would ask questions to other people that worked there. And I found that I had to ask them away from the site and not on site. A guard told me that he was asked to burn some photographs and not to look at them.